All right, so lesson number 4, we're going to speak further about the Exodus. So after the Hebrews crossed the Red Sea under the leadership of Moses, they were traveling to the Holy Land. But because they were scared of the inhabitants, because they did not trust that God would take care of them, that God was with them, as a punishment, they were made to wander for a generation in the desert before the next generation was allowed to enter the Holy Land. And so in this time, they are learning the commandments, they're learning the moral law that God is teaching them, and of course He is providing for them food and drink, the manna, the quail, and the water from the rock. We're going to begin with this lesson then to speak about the commandments. And again, the 10 Commandments are the basic moral code that God gave us. They're the basic minimum to understand what love is and what love isn't, and how to avoid those sins. So they speak to us about how our relationship with God should be, with our families, to respect other human beings, to respect marriage and sexuality, to respect the truth, to respect property, etc. So this is the 10 Commandments, and of course each of the commandments goes into a specific area. This particular lesson, we're going to focus on the 8th commandment. So we're going to look at it from the perspective from the Catechism, of course, again, to understand what the 8th commandment is. The 8th commandment, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So this 8th commandment, in generally speaking, is the commandment that commands us to respect the truth. And there's a number of ways that we can break this commandment. This commandment forbids us from lying or speaking badly about people in general. So obviously lying is deliberately telling an untruth, but there's also what we call defamation, which is speaking about someone to hurt their reputation. And this defamation can take one of two forms. It can either be slander or detraction, which is sharing something bad about someone, but which is in fact true, but sharing it is not necessary. But there's also the sin of calumny, which is sharing something bad about someone, but which is false. There's also the sin of flattery, which is praising someone to encourage them to commit an injustice. There's rash judgment, which means making a bad judgment about a person without knowing the truth. There's perjury, which is lying under oath. There's adulation, which is flattery intended to win someone's favor. And there's complacence, which is speaking an untruth merely to please someone. And under many of these sins is the sin of gossip, in which we are speaking unnecessarily about these things. We also want to note, when it comes to the 8th commandment, that out of justice, it's necessary for us to make reparation for the damage caused by our false witness against others. Because everyone has a right to their reputation, and we do not have a right to unnecessarily damage that reputation.